What's the difference between a manager and a leader? And is it possible to be both? In this video, I'll break it down. And spoiler alert, yes, I do think it's possible and important to be both. But I'll talk about exactly what the two look like and examples of how they come to life. Now, how this question recently came up is that when I do manager training, our most popular package through my company, Manager Method, is a blended package. So it's on-demand learning. Managers can take at their own pace, videos, and a resource guide at their own schedule, but then also have live cohort sessions to bring those to life, to discuss real scenarios. And we have materials for internal HR or people teams to generally run those themselves. And they have everything they need, PowerPoint, talking points. But for our enterprise organizations, we also customize those to include scenarios that their teams face, but also the language, like whether it's talking about their values, like how do those actually come to life? But also specifically, what do you call your people? Like the people that work, do you call them employees, team members, something else? The people that lead teams, do you call them managers, supervisors, leaders? And so recently I was on a call and we were talking about this, like, okay, going through the questions, what do you call your teams? And they said it's actually funny that our CEO recently was asking us, like, what do you think the differences are between a manager and a leader? And I asked, like, okay, what did you come up with? And they said, well, we didn't really agree on anything, but we wanted to hear your thoughts as well and what you're seeing people call their leaders. And spoiler alert, they were calling their managers and they switched to call them leaders. But what I said in that conversation, I'm talking about in this video to really break it down. Because the way that I often describe a manager versus a leader is that a manager will help someone in their job to get things done. A leader will help someone in their career. Now, yes, you can frame that like a manager helps someone in their job, a leader helps someone in their career. You can frame that, have that on Etsy, all fine and good, but what does that actually mean? Well, a manager really is often focused on the day-to-day, just getting that work done. But a leader takes an approach that also thinks about how you get the work done, how you can also involve team members and create development opportunities in the moment to think beyond just today, like this shift, this day, to think about the future and how you can give those opportunities while also getting that work done. Now, for some real examples, I'll talk about two different ones, one in a retail environment and one in a corporate environment. And I think that's important because in our manager training, we actually have it scalable across virtually every industry, like retail, corporate, healthcare. But a lot of times, training tends to be more about a corporate or office environment. But I've seen from my experience in literally working in retail, restaurants, both as a worker and also in legal and HR, but how often those managers in those positions don't get training, and they really need it because they're working super directly with their teams. And so to think about how a manager or leader looks in different contexts, first retail. Like let's take a clothing store. So a manager, like a person acting just as a manager, may come to the store in the morning. Maybe they even show up early and they look around and they see like hangers all around, clothing astray, like things kind of taped up. And so they go around and make a chart and they have the team. They say, okay, you need to pick up the hangers. You need to do this, get everything done. And so by the time the store opens and customers come in, it looks clean, team members know what they're supposed to do, and so the work gets done and all of that. But the way that you can take a leadership approach is instead of the manager taking this on and going through making this checklist, have their team come in and tell their team, and again, do this before the store is open, but say, go around and look at the store with fresh eyes. Look at it as a customer would and what you notice. And having people that, and literally having them switch from being told what to do to having them go around and make notes and then getting together, talk about what they noticed. And then asking them, instead of the manager approach of saying, okay, now you do this, you do that, asking your team, how do you think we can get this done in like a regular way? What's a way that we can actually assign these responsibilities so it's not just a check the box or like I'm telling you what to do? And so in that moment, the store opens, everything's clean, exactly the same in the two scenarios. But in manager versus leader scenarios, you've changed it. Because the manager, people feel like, okay, this is my job. I'm coming in, I'm checking the box. I'll be told what to do. I'll leave at the end of my shift. But when you have that leadership mindset, you're giving people the opportunity to speak up and have ideas. Talk about ways that they can approach it. And also developing that mindset that then, okay, maybe that person may be interested in a management role or a regional, evaluator role or something like that, so that they think of the approach to go to different stores and see things in a different light. So they're asking questions and they're getting ideas from team members as well. So all of a sudden you've moved from being like worker bees to really considering the opinions of others. And that's what that can look like in the retail environment. And just like that, in the corporate environment, let's take a marketing manager, and there's a big marketing launch campaign. Well, a manager may have a checklist, everything that needs to get done, assigning things that need to get done. Let's say there's a designer that's behind on their work. They go to the designer and tell them, you got to prioritize this. And they may even offer, I'll talk to other managers, make sure they know that you have to focus on this to make sure we meet our launch. So they're doing a solid by covering so that designer's not worried about getting in trouble with anybody else or having to take time to say, okay, sorry, I can't focus on your project because this manager told me XYZ. So that's a manager. So the manager's, again, making sure that the campaign gets launched and having everyone know exactly what they're supposed to do. But a leadership approach can be also saying, okay, let's look at everybody involved and maybe some people that aren't involved in it, but could know about this process. So you may have a team member that normally wouldn't be involved in the campaign, like they don't have any to-dos. But you can say, okay, I'm going to take this person and I'm actually going to bring them into a few meetings so that they can just understand what this process looks like. And then I'm actually going to bring them to a leadership team meeting and have them present to a small part of it. And we'll prep beforehand. But so instead of just having these designated roles, thinking beyond that and creating a real pipeline where people not only, you may tap whether you think someone's good for a role, but giving them the interest and experience. Because someone may look and see what a campaign is like and they're like, nope, not for me. But you'd rather know that now as they experience it or maybe try different ways or hear their ideas of what they would make them say no and could you change anything. But giving those opportunities without sacrificing getting the work done. And so those are just two examples of manager versus leader approach. And so in any circumstance, there's going to be times, like whether it's a campaign launch or a store, like a Black Friday store opening, the work has to get done. And as a manager, sometimes you have to focus and you're not thinking about leading people. You're thinking about being an extra set of hands and eyes and brain or whatever to get the work done. But your leadership is always important, and there's always opportunities to think, okay, how can I ask questions in the moment? How can I give people experiences, bring someone else in, even if just a shadow and give their thoughts later? And so thinking about what that looks like is the real differentiator between a manager and a leader. It's that kind of reactive manager's stance versus the proactive and more all-encompassing leadership approach. And so we talked about this in a shorter way with the organization that I was talking with, but overall, this is a conversation that can be really helpful. And so one that I think, not just having this amongst the HR team and the CEO, but talking to your people leaders about how do you think about being a manager versus a leader. And so hopefully this video helps you. And I have a blog where I talk through it as well, and also have a weekly email where I always include an additional question or tip that you can bring into your teams, whether you're in HR, teaching managers, or a manager to bring into your own leadership. So you can see examples of all of those in the description, but I hope this is helpful, and thanks for listening.